Short video on our Unit 1 essay. So on the right here, I have the Unit 1 essay assignment sheet, and I'll read a little bit about it. So in our first essay, we're looking at writing a narrative. This isn't necessarily typical of what you write in college, but it's a great stepping stone because we are going to incorporate an outside resource so that we are quoting something. We have at least one quote and one resource for this paper, but the narrative part means that we explore our own selves. And so I like that part because it gives you space to say, oh, well, who knows me best? It's my own self, right? So that gives you a little space to write about you, but then use the lens of what we're looking at in class. So Unit 1, as a narrative, it means that we're looking at narratives, or often it's not epiphanies. Those are those aha surprise moments where something big, something little just clicks with us. You'll find as everyone writes and explores their different assignments that sometimes we bring up an epiphany that is monumental and it is life-changing, and it's one of those pivotal core memories of our lives. But sometimes we're going to bring up epiphanies where something really small just finally clicked with us and we feel like we're part of a bigger group because we look at it and we go, oh, I get that. A silly one that I had once was that, of course, everything is in the last place you look, because you quit looking at that point. And I don't know why, but I never really thought about it. I never really pondered it. And one day I actually listened to the phrase, to the cliche, and it made sense in a new way. So it was silly, it's kind of simple, but it's a moment that I remember of, oh, I'm now part of the entirety of pretty much everyone else who gets this, who understands that second step. That was just evading me. I'd never really considered it. So they can be silly, fun, intense, emotional, dramatic. They can be just about anything. It's just a moment where we are growing as a person. So to get there, we're not just relying on us to just know instantly what that would look like. Instead, we're going to start by looking at samples. So these narratives focus on one specific moment, and that's what we want to do. If we try to talk about lots of things, we get sort of crowded and lost. And so we have to pick a thread, which is going to end up in our thesis, and then we are going to trail that thread through everything that we write about. To get there, we're going to look at Matt de la Peña's an excerpt of his essay, Sometimes the Tough Teen is Quietly Writing His Stories. And I wrote a little note about, hey, what was happening in the story? Has that been an experience of your own? Then we're going to look at David Sedaris' Us and Them, which is a short story, but also more of a narrative, slightly fictionalized narrative of his own experience. And again, a question: has something about you changed in light of what you're reading from Sedaris? And finally, in Judith Ortiz Cofer's The Myth of the Latin Woman, she again shares an example with us of a moment where something hit home to her. She looks at stereotypes in this case, which we're all familiar with those moments, with those ideas, but when that really hits home to someone, when it is part of their identity or something that they need to fight against, it suddenly shifts for her into an epiphany. So we're looking at those three, and the way that we do it is that we use them in our assignments. So when we are in week 2, our quiz is going to be on Matt de la Peña's short story. So a lot of things are happening here. The idea for a quiz is that you get easy points. I don't want it to be super hard. But I'm training you in terms of things that we are also going to be looking at, like quotation methods, annotated bibliographies. How do we read to get the most out of what we're looking at? How do we take notes? Those kinds of things. So I'm building on those through the quiz format, and we are getting this information. We're looking at this sample of someone else who had an epiphany. And then we're going to do that again in week 3 and week 4. So each week we have one of these stories, and we use it to build our other assignments in that week, and to then build into our paper. So while we're looking at this paper over here and we're saying, oh, this has all this stuff going on with it, well, it is going to build from here, week 1, all the way to week 6. So we have 6 weeks to do this. We have multiple weeks where we are practicing ideas. We are looking at how we take notes, how we do quotes, how to prepare for an essay, how to figure out what our thesis statement could look like. What is that? What does it mean? What kind of supports are there? Looking at things like outlines, not just, hey, let's do an outline, but what is an outline meant to do? How is it supposed to help me? And how can I process this concept and find a way to make outlines really good for my own self. So that's what we're doing with all of these different assignments each time we are building into it. And at the end of the day, with our Unit 1 assignment, we are going to have the key parts of an essay. That means we have an introduction with a thesis that says, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. We have some body paragraphs giving details so that someone understands why we're talking about it and what it meant to us. Those details are super important because if we just say it's good or I had that experience, people don't know what it meant or why it meant so much. If I say it was good and then I give a solid description of a good moment in life or what I think is good, other people can then say, oh, okay, that's what you mean when you say that. And of course, we're practicing a quote so that we're going to have a works cited page and we're going to have an in-text citation. We're going to use one of these 4 pieces, so one of these 3 essays, or we're also going to be looking at Anne Lamott's work about drafting papers. So we have all 4 of those to take epiphany quotes from, and I'm here to help you with that. If you, as you go through and you're working on different items like narrating or your thesis or looking at quotes and outlining, I can help you figure out which one could work and give you some ideas. And in the end, we have a conclusion and we have 3.5 to 5 pages of typed 12-point double-spaced work with that works cited and that correct in-text citation. So we're not doing a ton of it, but we are starting out with our experience as we look at what people write about. Why do they write about their personal experiences? What do we get from these particular stories? None of these perfectly mimic my life, but I can look at them and I can say, oh, that's something that changed in me too when I read, or I know of a book to talk about, or an experience where what I was reading, or how watching a movie, or any of those sort of outside stories impacted my life, or oh, I know what that's like when I have a perception of my neighbors or people around me, and then I have to look more closely at myself, or oh, I have experienced a stereotype, or I have pushed that stereotype on someone else, hopefully by accident, and we're looking at it going, oh, I had that in my head and I want to explore it. I want to ask questions about it. Each of these people are saying, hey, I had an experience and I'm trying to think it through. I'm trying to think of what I got or didn't get out of it, what that experience did for me, how it positively and negatively impacted me, and those changes that I'm seeing in myself. And we're just giving a couple of details. So as you go through, be thinking about this form that you two are going to write that introduction and thesis. You're going to pull us into your work. You're going to tell us about your experience with details. And then you're going to conclude with a lesson that we could perhaps also take away from your experience. And of course, it's all practice. So remember that for a lot of us, this is our first MLA paper. It's our first time perhaps with formatting of any kind, and we're practicing all of that as well. So that's Unit 1 essay. We are looking at these pieces. All of these links are within each section, so you can go to the quiz or you can go to the module with course files and FAQ, frequently asked questions, and it will be there as well. Keep those questions up because it helps me find things like this to help you and support you. But you're not coming up with this idea today. We are starting to get an idea in, say, 3 weeks. So in week 3, we start to say, oh, what could it look like? But also remember that you are never committed. So even if we come up with what is or could be a great thesis, we might say, oh, I really like that thesis. This could work. And then as we work on it the next week, we might say, oof, no, I don't like that. And that's what writing is about. It's about updating and changing and adapting as we get there until we turn in what we have for that final draft. So keep those questions coming, and I hope I'll keep the answers coming as well.